when I served in the United Nations as Israel's ambassador in the 1990s, there was an observation I had based on responses of European member states. And basically, actually, not so much the European member states, but actually the other states. You know, before a critical vote occurs, you want to find out how you're going to do. Who's going to vote for Israel and who's going to vote for the anti-Israel resolution. So when you go up to a whole number of countries, Japan, you go up to the Japanese ambassador, you say, how are you going to vote tomorrow? He says, depends on the European Union. What does Japan have to do with the European Union? But that's what he would say. Go to another area. Go to Argentina and ask the Argentinian ambassador, how are you going to vote tomorrow? Depends on the European Union. And basically, you could go all over the world and get that same response. So the European Union had a ripple effect that's huge and set the tone for the world. Now, when you get out of the Security Council, where the United States, Russia, China, the Perm Five have a veto power, in the larger bodies like the General Assembly, the European Union is the superpower. And frankly, the United States or Russia do not have that same diplomatic clout. And that's something which we always recognized. And the Israel mission to the UN dedicated huge resources to trying, first of all, to communicate with the European Union, and second of all, to put the European Union into its UN strategy. And sometimes it did work. At one time, we defeated the PLO in a resolution in the General Assembly. It was sort of like man walks on moon. But it can be done. It just requires a huge amount of diplomatic work. I think that was the main point I wanted to share with you in terms of how we experience the EU. And frankly, I don't want to dwell on all the bad things, but there's so much potential now. Back for most of the Cold War, the main strategic challenge of Europe, the dividing line, was the dividing line of the Warsaw Pact and NATO. At the end of World War II, America demobilized. The Soviet Union did not demobilize, and therefore in Czechoslovakia and in East Germany, you had huge armored formations that could have sliced through Europe and been at the English Channel in a very short amount of time. And therefore, you built a security structure to prevent that from happening. There was obviously a big European contribution, but if you didn't have America together with the NATO countries, you would have faced basically having your civilization demolished. Today, that dividing line, that challenge is not north-south in the in the center of Europe. That challenge is basically east-west in the Mediterranean. And anything that occurs that undermines Europe's security from the Mediterranean is a civilizational challenge. Now, I don't mean to drive a point. There is a country called Egypt. And now President Sisi has disclosed that Israel is working together with Egypt to try and help stop the military campaign of ISIS in Sinai. Now, just as a thought exercise, think about what would happen if Israel said, you know what, why should we be involved here? They'll just accuse us of being colonialists. We're getting out. And we let Sinai fall to ISIS. Step one. Step two, ISIS takes over Egypt. How many Coptic Christians are there in Egypt? 12 million. 12 million, basically, about. And what would they do with an ISIS victory, an impending ISIS victory in Egypt?
Move to Israel.
We built a wall. They'll go to Europe. And not only them, a lot of reasonable Muslims will go to Europe. And what you experienced from Syria and Iraq with an addition of Afghanistan, that'll be child's play in comparison to what will come from Egypt. And therefore, you'll have the second wave of a huge challenge to your security. So frankly, anything we do, and I'm not going into details, anything we do with the Egyptians to help defeat ISIS in Sinai is protecting the security of Europe. Israel is involved in protecting the security of Europe. So we're not going to write that on a bill and submit it in Brussels. But we're hoping that you will be cognizant of the fact that you're going to get energy from us and you already have security from us. So we're hoping that the European attitude will adjust accordingly. Don't take positions that are against your conscience. Don't take positions if you think we're doing something wrong. Frankly, in most cases, we're living up to the same standards that you have. But just don't attack us when there's no basis for it, and support initiatives that are prejudicial to the rights of the State of Israel and the international community.